Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Ducks of Gaming, and a bonus video before Path of Exile 2 launches. They did decide that they were going to release the full Ascendancies, so I thought it made sense to bring out just a quick video on what I'm going to go for, what Ascendancy nodes I plan to take, and the reason for it. As you can see by the screenshot, I'm going with Invoker Monk, even though GGG forgot to put the name of the Ascendancies on the screenshots, we know this is Invoker. The reason I was leaning away from this before is I was worried it would be a bit squishy and there wasn't really a way to get defenses into the build apart from gear in the tree. But with the reveal of all the nodes, there's now some really good defensive options. In fact, one of them is probably one of the best defensive nodes in the game. So let's go over just my choice. I'm not going to go through every single one because there's certainly different things you can do with this Ascendancy. But I'm not looking to do like cast on crit or meta skills or spells. I just want to use the quarterstaff and just go pure monk. So in terms of the way I see these builds, you're going to have two different variations. You're going to have a crit version where you're really, really well geared. You can then get much, much more damage. And you're probably going to have a beginner version when you're going to rely on things like Unbound Avatar, the extra damage from either I Am Thunder or I Am Blizzard, and then lead me through the grace and protect me from harm as your defensive layers on top of what you can find from the passive tree. So as with Path of Exile 1, you can take 8 points, which essentially gives you 4 notables in your Ascendancy. I think it's the same as in Path of Exile 1, in that you'll do 3 in the campaign and then 1 later on at end game. So the way I plan to go is to take I Am the Thunder first. It's not the best node in the world. It gives us a bit of lightning damage. It does give us 25% chance on shocking enemies to create shock ground, which means all the enemies will also be shocked. That comes in handy if you look at some of the skills from Monk, because one of them consumes the shock to give you power charges. There's another one that consumes shock to just release shock waves of damage. So there's certainly some playing around with even just that node once you get it. That then leads you on to Unbound Avatar. We don't know the full details of what it does in terms of the damage, but it essentially just gives you giga buffed elemental damage. And then I'll go on to the defensive ones. Now, it's a shame these aren't the other way around. Lead Me Through Grace does look like it'll be good because any extra spirit we can get means we can reserve more auras. But the most important one is Protect Me From Harm, which is evasion rating also grants physical damage reduction, but obviously you have less evasion rating. But physical damage reduction is very, very hard to get in Path of Exile when you're playing this sort of either evasion or evasion energy shield hybrid character. And if you are playing energy shield, you tend to just ignore it and just scale as much energy shield as you can. However, we don't know any of the values of what we can expect to get as a hybrid character. I certainly don't want to be running around with no physical damage reduction because anything that hits me is going to kill me. I'm not the best player in the world, so any help I can get in staying alive, the better. So they're the choices I've gone with. But obviously you could go pure glass cannon, and instead of taking Lead Me Through the Grace and Protect Me From Harm, you could go Sunder My Enemies and scatter them to the winds. But I do think you're going to be dying a hell of a lot on Monk. The good thing about skills like Unbound Avatar and Elemental Expression is that you can actually slot them into your skill bar and you can support them with gems. The higher level you get, the more support gems you can put into that skill. I think GGG said around mid to late 80s, you'll basically have a 6-link skill from your Ascendancy. I don't know what you can put in Unbound Avatar because it's a buff. So whether you can put in, damage gems or increase duration or things like that, I'll have to have a play around with it once I actually get there. But that's my plan for my Monk build. I was going to go Acolyte, and I do think it looks really strong, but I'm not sure it suits the Monk staff playstyle. It might be more something you'd want to do as a caster or something that can move at the same time, because the breach nodes look really good where you pick up like orbs to get buffs, but you don't want to be doing that when you have to stand next to the enemy to do damage, because it means you basically run around and collect these orbs. In that time, you could have been doing some DPS. If you're a caster, it makes it much easier to go and navigate and collect these things. It also looks like you want to try and scale chaos damage as much as you can, and that might be quite hard early on. But both Ascendancies look super strong, but I think Invoker looks a little bit better for me as just a straight out the box early starter. So what I thought I'd do really quickly, because I think people might get a little bit stuck in Acts 1 and 2 from the playthroughs I've seen, unless it's got a hell of a lot easier, because Monk doesn't have a ton in its arsenal unless you're using everything correctly. I watched a couple of playthroughs, one where people are using all the different skills available, and one where people are just spamming what they think is the strongest skill, and the spammer definitely died a lot more, and it looked like a much more frustrating experience. So when you start the game, you get Falling Thunder as your gem. From the playthroughs I've seen, you don't get a choice, but it's a fairly decent skill, but it's slow hitting. Very, very quickly, you're going to get offered Killing Palm and Staggering Palm. These are two skills that are going to basically make your clear much, much better. So the way these skills work is when you get enemies to a certain threshold, you can use your skill on them and it will give you a buff. So Staggering Palm, when an enemy gets close to being stunned, there'll be an indicator above their head. You can use that Staggering Palm skill and it will give you 6 seconds of projectiles from your attacks. So you can just spam your basic attack, shoot at loads of projectiles and clear some packs. With Killing Palm, as you've just seen there, you'll get a blue indicator above the enemy's head. If you then use Killing Palm, it will cull that enemy and give you a power charge. The power charges empower your Falling Thunder, shoots loads of projectiles out, does a ton of damage and clears almost entire packs apart from the tough monsters. You are going to need to use those skills in the first few acts if you don't want to just spend ages getting through and just get overwhelmed while trying to use just single attacks. But the game does look tough, so I think if you die, don't get too deterred. But that's basically all the skills that I need in my arsenal to get through Act 1. Is going to be the 2 Palm skills, Falling Thunder when it's empowered by power charges, Tempest Bell when you've done a combo, and then you just use them all together. So Tempest Bell, because I've seen people in the playthroughs just spamming it and it not working, you have to do a combo ability before you use Tempest Bell. So a combo would be like your basic attack, and there is an ice version, a wind version, and a lightning version. But at the beginning, you're probably only going to have the basic attack. When you complete 4 strikes of your combo, that's when you can use Tempest Bell. The bell will have a number on it, and it will go 1, 2, 3, 4. When it hits 4, you can drop the bell. You hit the bell, it does AoE. If you can hit the enemy and the bell with the same AoE, it does a ton of damage. So things like positioning on boss fights is going to be really important. Don't just throw the bell down randomly. Wait for a time where the bosses are going to move, drop the bell in front of him, use Falling Thunder, and then you'll hit the boss with both attacks and it will do double damage. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk through is in Act 2, you get Herald of Thunder, and you also get your Lightning combo skill. It looks like just these 2 things alone can clear white packs, because the playthroughs I've seen, no one got really any upgrades. And the Lightning combo, along with Herald of Thunder, just done a ton of damage. So the way Herald of Thunder works is when you shock, which will be on your last hit of your combo, you basically next 2 attacks get Lightning, AoE, and damage attached to them. You can see it by the indicator that keeps appearing in the bottom left of the screen that says 2. That means you've got 2 empowered attacks. You only need to kill a shocked enemy to do that. If you kill an enemy and shock them at the same time, it counts. And this looks like pretty much you can just go ham with this skill on its own if you wanted to, but I would still use your combo skills where you can. It's going to make things quicker. And later on, there's no way you're going to get away with just spamming one lightning skill and using a little buff from Herald of Thunder. Early, these buffs are normally better than they are later on, although we can now scale them with things like, support gems. That's kind of it. They're my first 2 acts planned out. Not really planned it past sale. I just want to make sure, if I'm honest, if I can get in on Friday, that I get through Act 1 fairly quickly, and maybe then the server load is not quite as bad in the zone that I'm in. So selfish reasons, along with just wanting to have a smooth start and don't want to have to spend ages playing around with gems if the performance is going to be quite bad. So just to recap, it's going to be Falling Thunder, Killing Palm, Staggering Palm, the bell, and just basic combo in Act 1, just making use of all the buffs. Then as soon as we get Lightning Strike, it's not called Lightning Strike, but it's something like Lightning Strike, along with Herald of Thunder, then it makes it a bit more easy that when you do come across weak packs, you can literally just use that ability as is shown on the screen here, and it will clear small packs. That's kind of it. I'm really, really excited to get started. This has been the longest week in the world, and we've still got a couple of days to go. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and see you in the next one.